We're living in incredible times and in dangerous times. And quite frankly, with the passing of some Gedolei Yisrael, the health issues concerning other Gedolei Yisrael, and the fact that there's a nuclear threat from Iran which appears, Rahman al-Islam, to be real, and once again the world is taking a step backwards and cautioning the Jewish people to stay calm when our very lives are on the line. Tragedies happening to young people in every community in the world. It's a scary time. There's a pasuk in Mishlei that talks to our times. Doga believe ish yashichena yasichena. There are two interpretations. When an individual has a worry in his heart, he should suppress it. Fear, worry is never beneficial. It only causes harm. So you have to attempt to subdue it. According to the Ralbag, an intelligent person should realize that anxiety about something which is only transitory in a transitory world is not very beneficial. He calls it shigaon. It's insanity. Rather than worry about it, an individual should put his faith in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In fact, Rashi has two interpretations as to what exactly a person should do in times of anxiety. Either, according to Rashi, he should just remove that thought from his mind, from his heart. Mind over matter. Stop worrying, stop being concerned about the turbulence in life and put your faith in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He should divert his attention from it. Or Yisichenu La'achirim, as the Gemara Numa says on Daf Ayin Hem and Aleph. He should tell it to others. So I'm hoping that the intent of this evening is to talk things out. Because in my mind, the premier concept of the Seder is the lesson to teach our children Sedar Gott in the Welt, that God exists. And just as He took care of us years ago, He'll take care of us today. Reb Levi Yitzchak Barditcheva, as one could understand, experienced the most phenomenal Sedarim. Who in Klal Yisrael could have conducted and lived through a Seder like Reb Levi Yitzchak? He fell asleep at the table after finishing Nirtza, and he had a dream. And in this dream, he was told by a heavenly voice that though his Seder was very acceptable and very special, there was a Yid in Berditchev who had a far greater Seder. And he was told the man's name and his address. And in the middle of the night, he rushed to this fellow's home in the wee hours of the morning. He knocked on the door. And the fellow was deeply asleep. He roused him from his slumber and he said, Rabbi, tell me about your Seder. And the man refused to answer. He was embarrassed. And finally he spilled the beans. He said, Rebbe, we're living in troubled times. Cossacks, the oppression, the fact that Jews are second-class citizens. And so every day to bolster my spirits, I take spirits. To be b'simcha, I take a glass of bromfin. An 8-ounce glass of bromfin. And that's how I start my day. This morning it was Erev Pesach. Bromfin, schnapps, chametz. What am I going to do? So I came up with a gewaldige idea. I took my typical glass of bromfin, and then I poured out 8 more glasses of bromfin, one for each day of Pesach. And I drank 9 glasses of schnapps. I fell asleep. I slept straight through to the Seder. My children are at the table. My wife is trying to wake me up, and I'm gone. And finally I hear her saying, you're the only person in the world that's not having a Seder. How could you not have a Seder? So I got up, roused myself from my slumber, drank the wine, said a little Haggadah, ate the matzah. And I turned to my kids and I said, Kinderlach, I'm old, it's Sagana. In the past, the gypsies, in his mind, the Egyptians were gypsies, the only people he could relate to. It's the Gano. They grabbed hold of us, they kidnapped us, they enslaved us. And the Rabbi Shalom Gekumen, God arrived, and he freed us. And we're here today. That's the way it's going to be, Kinderlach. We're oppressed by the Kazakhs, the anti-Semites, the economic duress and depression. But soon the day will arrive when HaKadosh Baruch Hu will send Mashiach, and we are going to be redeemed and released to eternal freedom. I believe Yitzchak fell silent. And the simple understanding of this is that it's Emunah Pshuta, the simple faith of a Jew facing adversity and realizing that Hashem is going to save us as He saved us in the past. I think there's a far deeper meaning. You see, because what we do at the Seder, and what Rabbi Yitzchak did, was 3, 4, 5, 6 hours about the past, about history, recreating history. The Makkos, the 10 plagues, the Kriyas Yamsuf, the pain, the suffering, the expression of love when HaKadosh Baruch Hu redeemed us. And then at the very end of Sipa Yitzias Mitzrayim, as we're about to drink the second kais, we finally say, Kein Hashem Elokeinu, take us out, Bari Priagafa. We spend 4 hours on history and 30 seconds on the future. This year time that it's all about the future. Cain, so too, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the miracles of the coming redemption will cause Yitzias Mitzrayim to become pale in comparison. In contrast, it'll be as if no miracles had occurred. That's what we have to espouse at the Seder. The 11th plague of a nuclear war. There isn't an 11th plague. There's a Rebbeinu Shalom developed. And we have a history of thousands of years. And the night of the Seder, according to Reb Tzadok HaKohen, is to espouse that there's no Yush. We never give up hope. The same way that Sagana, the Gypsies, the Egyptians were told of us in the past, all the oppressors of Klal Yisrael are gone. The sun has set on the Roman Empire. The Assyrian Greeks are no more. Kein Hashem Elokeinu, so too it's going to be here and now. And that's what we need to understand and to realize. That's how we suppress our fears, and that is how we are to instruct our children. We've been through everything in life, but there's a Rebbeinu Shalom who's beneficent, he's full of compassion, he has a history, and because of that history we have a glorious future. You know, last year I was given an incredible artifact by someone in my Kehillah in Flatbush. His mother survived Auschwitz, and the day of liberation, she went into the SS dining hall, and she took 2 spoons, serving spoons, with the insignia of the SS, those 2 bolts of lightning. And she told her son last year to give it one to the Rav. And last year at my Seder, we spooned out the charesis, the moror, with that spoon. Could you imagine what that's all about? What we're telling our children? If we survived Auschwitz, we can survive Iran. If we survived Auschwitz, we can survive anything that anyone in the world is throwing at us. That's the future. The night of the Seder is a time when parents and grandparents have to take over. V'gana levincha. As Rav Elfin Shlita said, it's wonderful to say shtiklach Torah. That's not the job of the children. They're supposed to ask questions, and we're supposed to provide the answers. And you know what the answers are? They're here and now. Look at Bubby, look at Zayd, look at Tati, Mommy, Abba, Ima, Dad, and Mom. They went to college, and they stayed Shem Torah Mitzvahs in Yale or in Harvard. And they learned the Daf Yomi when there was a time for it between classes. And Zayda came to America in the 30s or to Canada in the 30s, like my grandparents did, to Ottawa and to Nova Scotia, finally to Montreal. And they built schools and mikvahs. My Bubby was the national president of Canada, of the Mizrahi women for 25 years. There are chapters named after a little diminutive woman, 5'10", and they made a Ma'apecha revolution. And Moshe Shera told me in those days, Yiddishkeit was Mizrahi. So at the end of the day, here were people who turned lives around, simple people. But every one of us has this story. If we're here today, Nashim Tzidkani have taken time out of their busy schedules, preparing Yom Tov 2 weeks in advance, to take it out 2 weeks later. You know, Haman and Achashverosh have an argument, who's the greater anti-Semite? And Achashverosh says, I'm the greater anti-Semite. And Haman says, no, I am. And Achashverosh says, what are you talking about? Haman says, what are you talking about? Haman says, you created a decree to kill the boys? Me, I'm the bigger anti-Semite. Achashverosh says, what are you talking about? You created a day called Purim. They celebrate, they have a good time, and it's one day. Because of me, my machinations and tachbulas, they have an 8-day holiday. It takes them 2 weeks to bring it in, and 2 weeks to get back to norm. I'm the bigger anti-Semite. The truth of the matter is, this is what the night of the Seder is all about. Tell your children about your love for Yiddishkeit, about your grandparents' love for Yiddishkeit, what it meant to survive the Holocaust of Churban Europa and to come here and rebuild Torah, mitzvahs, Yerushalayim, and Chesed, of Achmas HaSorchen, of watering down the soup so that more people could enjoy the Shabbos Suda with you, of what it meant to live in the 30s and in the 40s in North America, to keep Shabbos and Kashrus and Taras HaMishpacha, and the love and the celebration of Yiddishkeit. That's the night of the Seder. That's to counteract all the fear. That's Yasichen al-Achirim. That's to block it out of mind and to share it with others. And that's what the night of the Seder is all about. You know, there was a flight of the now defunct Northwest Airlines from JFK to Minneapolis, where I lived for 19 years. And the flight was delayed an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. Finally, the lead flight attendant sheepishly gets on the PA system and says that we're embarrassed, the airline's embarrassed, but the flight crew arrived inebriated. Fashik slosh. So we're waiting for a new flight crew. A while later, the jetway is connected to the plane, and a pilot and a co-pilot appeared. It's the most bizarre thing, a sick joke of Northwest Airlines. The pilot's wearing sunglasses. He has a white tipped cane that he's tapping along with. The co-pilot has a seeing eye dog. They walk into the cockpit. They seal the door. The engines are gunned, and they start going down the runway. And the passengers are terrified. And finally, just as about to enter the bay, into the ocean at the end of the runway at JFK, the passengers give out an unearthly yell. They're screaming, they're hollering, yelling and crying. And just as they're about to get into the drink, the pilot lifts up the plane effortlessly into the wild blue yonder. A few minutes later, the pilot turns to the co-pilot and says, Harry, one of these days, these guys are going to scream too late and we're going to end up in the water. Never happened. But it does happen every day. Because most of the world is flying blind. We're not flying blind. We have the Torah Tosha. We have Emunah and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's like those two fellas that are traveling on a plane, experiencing terrible turbulence. The plane is bucking and shaking. And the one fellow was a novice traveler, and the other one, he's a seasoned traveler. The novice is going crazy, jumps out of his seat. If I don't understand the aerodynamics, I'm bailing out of the plane. And the seasoned traveler, he follows the instructions of the pilot. He puts his tray table, he stows his tray table, puts his seat in the upright position. He fastens his seatbelt, and he's calm. Because he's flown before, he's a seasoned traveler. He has faith in the pilot. That's the Seder. To reinforce, we are maminim b'nei maminim. We are seasoned believers. We've been through everything. And you know, our generation is a unique generation. Many people think it's going to the dogs. Yiddishkeit is flourishing. And it's not just flourishing, it's exploding. And I'm not just talking about Chayzri B'tshuva, FFBs from birth, FFCs from choice. I'm talking about our kids. They're throwing things at our kids that the world never dreamed of. And they're passing with flying colors. My Rebbe, Orna Gunnar Rafal Shmuel Birnbaum, Zatzal, was sort of elephants, Rebbe. Also looked with me in the mirror. Shmuel Birnbaum was a big believer in the youth of North America. He loved Americanayim. He loved the Kali Yigalites, the Yeshiva Bachram, the Balabatim who were Erlich of B'nai Torah, B'nai Aliyah. He loved the Rabbanim. And he used to fight with Moran of Shteiman as to which of the B'nai Torah was stronger. He felt America was much stronger than Eretz Yisrael. And on the way to his Kvura, I was able to be of the Talmidim that did the Tahara on the Rebbe. I flew with the Aron, I was Kaiverim, I was Masperim in Eretz Yisrael. His son told me an incredible insight of the Rebbe that really defines our generation, the greatness of our generation, and the schar of our generation. Yaakov Avinu makes the startling declaration, Eilech ve'rena b'terem amos. I've got to go see my son Yoseph before I die. As for Shmuel, of course, once Yaakov Avinu dies, he won't be able to see Yosef. He explained based on what Rav Elchanan Wasserman Zatzal Hashem Kendamai, his Rosh Hashiva Baranovich told the Bachman in Baranovich, Chap the Reinet Gezen the Chavetz Chaim. Carpe diem, seize the day, run and see the Chavetz Chaim, because here you'll be able to see the Chavetz Chaim. But in the world to come, where they understand the value of the Chavetz Chaim, you may never be able to see him. Chap the Reinet. So Shmuel Birnbaum, who was the Masmed Ador, the perennial scholar of the generation, constantly learning Torah, he said Yaakov Avinu was the Bechira Avos. He was the chosen one. Yishtam Yeshiv Eholim, constantly learning Torah, day and night, under the most adverse and challenging times. That was Yaakov. But Yosef faced the most incredible test that any man had faced. Eishes B'Tifa. According to the Medrash, it was more challenging and difficult than all the nisyanis and tests of Avraham Avinu. All of his tests combined with all the nisyanis of Yitzchak and Yaakov. That's how difficult this test was, to withstand the temptations of Eishes B'Tifa. According to another Medrash, for 2 years she came to him. I'm the ticket out of prison. And he refused by Imayim. So Reb Shmuel, to the extent that Chazal call him Yosef HaTzadik, says Yaakov Avinu, Eilech ve'renu b'terem amos. I better go see him before I die. Because in Yena Welt, in the world to come, where they understand and appreciate what it means to withstand temptation to be Emunah ben Hasayim, I may not be able to see my son. The incredible heroism of withstanding the tivus of the day, I may not be able to see my son. That's how great it is to be Emunah ben Hasayim. We're faced with the challenges of the internet, all the issues that we have today, and we and our children are being Emunah ben Hasayim. They have a geschmack out of learning, out of Torah, out of mitzvahs. They enjoy the Seder, they tell of the Divrei Torah, take care of younger siblings, of older siblings, they connect to each other. They're good kids. It's an incredible generation that we're raising. No other generation has the temptations that we have today. And to have such an outpouring of individuals, men and women, coming tonight to hear of Elephant, about Anyane Kashrus, the various Erurus, to strengthen our Emunah and Betachon, our ability to transmit it to our children, this is a benchmark. This is something very special. It's a busy time for all of us. To be able to be concerned with passing on this Messiah of Emunah and Betachon for God in the Welt, that's what this evening is all about. We're an incredible generation. And we have to raise our children as great people. Rabbi Sol Salanta, when he woke up his son, he would say, Prince, Your nation is waiting for you to extend your rule over it, your sovereignty over it. We wake up our kids, our grandchildren. You get late for the bus, you miss your couple, you're a bum, you're not going to grow up into anything. And we're so salon to raise his children as crown princes. Which reminds me of an incredible story about being Omer ben Israel. And it's a story about Queen Elizabeth and Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher. Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher was invited to a state dinner at Buckingham Palace, attended by the Queen of England, for 2,000 people. She's announced, she walks in, Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher and her husband, and the place goes silent. Dishes stop clattering, glasses stop clinking, and everyone looks at Margaret Thatcher with venomous hatred. You see, unbeknownst to Margaret Thatcher, she wore that even the exact same Prada designer outfit that the Queen of England was wearing. And the next day, the British media had a field day usurping the royal house of Windsor. They'll do it to themselves, but a commoner? That very same day, Prime Minister Thatcher penned a personal note to the Queen of England, apologized. That very same day she received a letter from Her Royal Majesty's Royal Secretary, and it read, "Dear Mrs. Thatcher, the Queen of England does not notice what other people are wearing. Have a nice day." In other words, you're not even a blip on the radar screen. You don't exist. This is the Queen of England. That's how we have to raise our children. They're royals. How others dress on vacation? How they pleasure themselves? Not even a blip on the radar screen. My daughter, when she was a young girl, she was Baruch now in Kiryat Sefer, in Eretz Yisrael, with her husband and 3 children. She was enamored with the Royal House of Windsor. She had all kinds of books out of the library in Minneapolis. And I was reading one of these books. It says that the Queen's entire schedule for the entire year is planned out a year in advance. On Tuesday, in May, she's going to travel to Zimbabwe and descend from the airplane onto the tarmac and take the flowers from the girl in the yellow paisley dress, third from the left. Get back on the plane. Flies out to Manitoba for a ribbon cutting ceremony of a children's hospital. Every day of her year is planned out. Every day of our year is planned out. We're going to eat matzah and not chametz on Pesach. We're going to fast on Yom Kippur. We're going to sit in the sukkah. What we eat, when we eat, how we eat, if we eat. We're royals. It has to be communicated to our children. The ultimate mode of communication, the focus in life, is the Seder. It's wonderful to say, oh, look, Pshatlach and Veltlach, that's not your job. Spend time on Divrei Torah. But your job is to give over a personal eyewitness account of family and friends and neighbors and Rabbonim and Rabbeim that you experienced. And wonderful Nashim Tzidkaniyas, the Mesiras Nefesh, the love for Yiddishkeit, for Emunah, and Betachon and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the night of the Seder. Yisichenu la'achirim Pesach. This is the time to talk. It's a contraction of Pesach. The Egyptian worshipped the deity of the animal kingdom. We took it and we slaughtered it and we serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We took back the Koyach HaDibur. The hallmark of a human being is the fact that he's medaber. He can communicate. The night of Pesach is to communicate. Emunah and Betachon to our children. It's a very interesting story, an incredible story. In a Shalos V'Tshuva Sefer called Milamakir, written by Rav Osher Zatzal, who was together with the Kovner Rav in the ghetto. Many shilos were asked during the Holocaust. This is one of those shilos. A fellow approached the Kovner Rav. They were going to build a clandestine matzah bakery under the noses of the Nazis, you must know. And the question was, they want to be able to bake matzahs with all the leniencies, all the coolest that are possible. using glass bottles to roll out the matzah. The minimum amount that's necessary to produce kosher matzahs. And they were giving a list of kulas. Comes the night before Pesach, and they're baking these matzahs. And the Nazis, Yimach Shemam, break in. And they start killing Jews and bludgeoning them. They took the redla, took away this wheel that's used for making matzahs, and they killed him. And the leader of the group, thank you very, very much. The leader of the group, the one who had inspired all the others to bake the matzahs, they took this metal redle and they smashed it in his mouth, knocking out all his teeth. Jagged remnants of teeth. So he came to the Covenant Rav late that night. You know what his shaila was? His shaila wasn't, if it's Leil Shimurim, how come we were injured and killed? Shlech mitzvah in the zaken, if we're doing holy work, how can we be harmed? His shaila was, give me the minimal shiurim and how to eat matzahs with no teeth. That was his shaila. Now we need leniencies concerning achilas matzah. Yesterday was how to bake matzahs, now how to eat these matzahs. These are people that we live with, that we've learned from, that we've davened next to, that are our neighbors, all across North America and the world. And the valiant Jews that came here prior to the war. Toronto doesn't have a problem with filtered water, right? I'm not saying New York does. It's ridiculous.
It's a different speech.
It's a different speech. Both of it's better when you hear about it. My grandmother, Rabbi noticed, my wife's grandmother, Rabbi Yisrael Tanchem noticed, Zatzal was nifter at a younger age. She remarried her Mordechai Yafi, Zivuk Sheni, second marriage. He was a towering Torah personality. He once told me over the following story. He grew up in Baltimore, and he had a neighbor who told him that when he was a little boy, his father had come to the United States. This goes back now to the 20s. And you couldn't find a job where you could keep Shabbos. If you don't work on Saturday, don't bother coming in on Monday. Job after job. And these unsavory people in Baltimore would hire Jewish people and put them on probation for 2 weeks. And they wouldn't pay him until they came for the second week. And if you didn't come on Saturday, you were fired. He couldn't find a job. It was Friday night. His kids were literally crying, starving to death. Crying in their sleep from hunger. He says, what am I supposed to do? Watch my kids die? So he said, I have no choice. He put on his clothing, his workday clothing. He's ready to go to work. Slips down the back of the building. Before he leaves for work, he remembers there's an incinerator room where they burn the garbage. It was early Shabbos morning. He went into the incinerator room, foraged for food. He found some bread and some fruits that had been thrown into the garbage. And he went upstairs and he gave it to the children to eat. He changed back into his Shabbos clothes. He went to shul. The next day he found a job. He was able to keep Shabbos. This man's children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren became great Talmidei Chacham. Some are teaching Torah in Lakewood and all over the world. You know what saved this man's Yiddishkeit? Their Yiddishkeit, the garbage. Do we have any idea of the Mesiras Nefesh? But Mesiras Nefesh with excitement, with inspiration that our parents and grandparents had to bring us to this point. And we could spend an evening talking about kashrus and inyonei chizuk and emunah for the night of the Seder. That's what has to be handed over to our children. The Torah tells us myriads of mitzvahs concerning Zachiras Yetzias Mitzrayim. It's incorporated in our psyche. Ve'etzem lo yisishvuru bo. You can't gnaw on the bones of the Korban Pesach. It's a slovenly thing. It's not derech malacha. Explains the chinuch adam nifol kefi puloisav. Because let's face it, not every one of us is so inspired and moved the night of the Seder to transmit Geula that people look at us and feel as if we just left Mitzrayim. In fact, the vehicle seems to be almost insignificant. Chayiv Adam Laharis is Atzmai, says the Rambam. My father's that's how explained. You have to project to others. Like a cup that's overflowing. People sitting next to the father, the mother, the grandparents have to feel as if they just left Mitzrayim. So how do we do this? A little bit of matzah, a little bit of maror, a taste of chirus, reclining, making a mess on the floor. How does that project freedom? The Maril Rabbi Yosef Leibloch, 75 years ago, in a Maimer, he questions why there isn't a more theatrical way to celebrate Pesach. He does. He says every city and town should have thespians, Jewish actors, creating a Jewish passion play in which they recreate Yetzias Mitzrayim. In our day, we could say Shmuel Spielberg should create an Exodus theme. Take the ride for 15 minutes. We're crying, we're laughing, recreating Yetzias Mitzrayim. A little bit of matzah, a little bit of maror. Says the Maril, the key to success in life, in Yiddishkeit, is a little bit of matzah, a little bit of maror. We make a big mistake. You know, after the 6-Day War, Hakotel B'Yadeinu, Ramat Kal Yitzchak Rabin sends a communique to headquarters. And you know what he says? Meis Hashem Hoysazos in the Floss Beinenu. Zeh Hayom Asa Hashem Nagila V'Nismach Avay. Now he didn't use Havara Ashkenazis, he spoke like an Israeli. Havara Ivrit. It's all from God. Yitzchak Rabin is saying Hallel. He's quoting Psukim from Tehillim. You have to say Hallel. He's saying Hallel. That was his reaction to the 6-Day War. Hakotel B'Yadeinu. 3 weeks later, Rav Yitzchak Perez, who's the Rav of Ranana, was at a conference. He snuck in that Yitzchak Rabin gave for all the military attachés of the civilized world. That means of the free world at that time. From France, from Sweden, from Canada, from the United States, they were all there. England, Britain. And he gave a shir kloli. He gave an overview, a lecture on the fine points of the battle of the 6-Day War. And he said, Ziachad v'chalak, it was surgical precision. He said, Elegante, it was elegant. 3 reasons why we won the war. Aleph Tzava, Bet Tzava, Gimel Tzava. The army. Tzva Ganal Yisrael. What happened to Meis Hashem Hoysazos in the Floss Beinenu? What happened to Zeh Hayom Asa Hashem Nagila V'Nismach Avay? Torah Kedusha teaches us. V'yilchu shloishes yomim b'li mayim. There were 3 days without Torah. They're debating and questioning whether Yesh Hashem B'Kilbeinu, does God exist in our midst. You can see the most incredible things in life. You can experience Yetzias Mitzrayim, the miracles of the splitting of the sea, but you remain Shifcha Layam. If you don't reinforce it with Torah, and there's no way of spreading this Emunah Betachon HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I think we're good to go. So I'll end with this story. There's a young lady in a seminary in Yerushalayim. She comes from Brooklyn. I know her family. Her father was a Bachar and Talmud Yeshiva when I was in the Kollel in Cleveland. Great Talmud Chacham and Aleph Masifta in New York. A prestigious Talmud Chacham. This girl is one of the best girls in BJJ, Rabbi Tzim David's Beis Yaakov in Yerushalayim. She's beautiful, she's brilliant, and she is blind. Rahman al-Islam, she can't see. Age of 8, she was very not well. And then she recovered from her illness, but she remained without her vision. She's an incredible girl. A cousin of mine's daughter is a roommate. Everybody loves her. She's the top girl in the seminary. Shufra the shufra. Creme de la creme. But she has a mishigas. She likes to ride the roller coaster. When they cash around the old cyclone on the boardwalk in Coney Island, making kosher for Pesach, some Moshe takes over Coney Island to raise some money. She rides the cyclone 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. She loves roller coasters. And her father once asked her, "What's with you and this roller coaster?" And she said like this: "You get on the roller coaster and you're in for the ride of your life. and you're terrified. You could be thrown out, injured, or chas v'shalom worse. But right before the ride begins, the attendant takes the bar and pushes it into your chest and locks it in place. And no matter where you go, corkscrews, twist to the left, to the right, upside down, you're safe. She says, right before we're born, we're in for the ride of our life. It's called life, the roller coaster ride of life. Ups and downs and twists and turns. Right before we're born, we're given the bar. It's called Emunah and Betachon and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And as we hold on to that bar, we're safe no matter where we go. She said, every once in a while, I want to feel that bar. I want to get on that roller coaster ride and not know how it's going to end up, but knowing that as long as I feel that bar, I'm safe. That's what we have to transmit to our children the night of the Seder. That's our bar. It's called Emunah and Betachon HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And a Talmud of mine asked me, what's the difference between someone who rides the roller coaster that can see and one that Rahman al-Islam can't see? And I answered that, when you can see Malik to a hunt, you get involved in the process. You anticipate a steep curve or turn, so you brace yourself, you tilt to the right, to the left. But if you can't see, you rely completely on the bar. The world is flying blind, but we can see. Because believing is seeing, not seeing is believing. I'll prove it to you. Yoseph that Yitzhak went there at Yisrael and brought home brisker matzahs. 3 matzahs for $50. And your neighbor, your friend, your co-worker, maybe not Jewish, maybe not yet connected to Yiddishkeit, says, Harry, how much you pay for those crackers? $50. $50! Oh, did I tell you I hired cleaning help for $500 to get rid of that elusive pretzel? Public enemy number 1, the cracker at Tom. What do you spend for an esrog? $100? Get 3 lemons for $2. Believing is seeing. We see things differently because of our belief. When we have that Betachon and Emunah, we're safe. And you know what our Betachon and Emunah, you know what emanates where it comes from? Yehuda Levi says that he differs with the Rambam and the Ramchal about Mesilas Yesharim, that you have to debate and prove the existence of Hashem in your life. Yehuda Levi the Khazari says every Jew is endowed with 6 senses called Emunah in Hashem. You have 5 senses and a 6th sense called Betachon. But there's a difference. Every other sense is activated upon birth. The 6th sense called Emunah lays dormant until you activate it with learning Torah. The more Torah you learn, Bereshis Baruch Lekimas Hashemayim V'Sa'aretz, Vayidab Hashem HaMoshe Lemor, a vort on the Parsha, a Pasuk Chumash, a K'tzais, a Taisvis, Mishnayis, a Tehillim, it awakens that Emunah and Betachon. That's our challenge. To awaken the Emunah and Betachon that lies dormant in our people. From without and from within. To take that bar and hold it close to our chest. That's the night of the Seder. Forget about the past. It's not just a history lesson. Kain Hashem Elokeinu. He'll redeem us. He'll save us. He'll cure us. He'll take care of every plague, the 11th plague as well. We have to strengthen ourselves. Rabbi Gamliel Rabinovich, this great tzaddik in Yerushalayim, heard the story of the girl, and he added an addendum. He said, you take the lulav and esrog on Sukkot and you shake it in 6 different directions. And you cry out, Ha'idel Hashem Kitayv, Ki La'olam Chastayv. Ana Hashem Aishiana. Why are you crying out, Ha'idel Hashem? The Jewish people are like the lulav, the esrog, the hadasim, and the arabas. And we shake it in every direction, up and down, north and south, east and west. We're turned upside down. But we still cry out, Ha'idel Hashem Kitayv. You know what that means? Give thanks to HaKadosh Baruch Hu because His kindness endures. It also means Lo'olam Miloshin Nelam, all the hidden things that Hashem does for us. All the machinations of the Goyim. How was Hashem Kol Goyim? We don't even know what they tried doing to us. But very shortly we'll be able to see, it'll be revealed to them how HaKadosh Baruch Hu took all of the machinations and turned it upside down like Purim. We're between Kaisais, the Kaisais of Purim and the Kaisais of Gul, the Dalet Kaisais. It's a time to say Ha'idel Hashem Kitayv. As Rav Elephant eloquently said, it's a night of Akaras HaTayv. Hakaras HaTov means Emunah and Betachon. If we thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for the past, He'll give us what to thank for the future. You know, there's a gewaldige school for Parnassah. It's called Birchas Hamazon. According to the Chinuch, if you bench like a mensch, you recite Birchas Hamazon, the grace after meals with Kavanah, you guarantee success economically. Now, why is that? I'll tell you why it is. Because ordinarily, when you're successful, you push away from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Vayishma, Yishuv, and Vayivat. But if you have success in life and you say thank you to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then that success is a medium, a vehicle to connect to Hashem. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu keeps on allowing that connection. And we be the night of the Seder to transmit Emunah and Betachon on a personal level with the bits and pieces of Yiddishkeit. The little things that are seemingly insignificant but make all the differences in life that change our lives. It's little things that get us in trouble like the Seder, and it's little things that will take us out of trouble. The schus of the Seder, we should be zeicher, Arab and Flois, to see the miracles of the epoch of Mashiach, which will be so incredible that we'll forget all about the past. We'll have a glorious future. We'll be zeicher to the coming of Mashiach, Zakir, Meher, Yameinu.